REI Talk and some travel tips. Stay tuned for show number 4. Welcome, everyone. This is Ruben Galindo. I'm a real estate agent, real estate investor out of San Antonio, Texas. I'm excited today. I'm here with Lisa Kulpa. She's out of Buffalo, New York. She's got a very interesting story. She talks about how she acquired her first deal through Craigslist. So, man, I'm kind of excited to hear about that. Lisa, welcome to my show. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you. Take a moment. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Ruben. I'm super excited to be on. I've grown up kind of in the real estate world. My dad was in construction, and I kind of grew up being around construction, painting. I think which was really helpful now for real estate. You are constantly painting, I feel. But my fiance and I run a travel blog. We teach people how to utilize credit card reward points and travel the world for free. And it's really great tying it into the real estate world. When you are renovating a property, you tend to spend a lot of money, so you get a lot of points for a lot of free travel. So interesting.
I'm going to have to hit you up on that off the show. I definitely want to know a little bit of tips about that. But anyhow,
absolutely.
I'm just curious now with this whole COVID-19, has travel been impacted now by any chance? What impact did it have for you?
Yeah, we usually, my fiance works in schools, so usually every summer we take, a month, 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks off, and we travel somewhere in the world. And we were actually supposed to get married in June, and we had to push our wedding off to 2021, and also our honeymoon that we were planning to go to the Maldives. So there's been a lot of travel changes that we have not been able to do.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. Great. So very interesting about travel hacking. I've never really looked into it, but I know there's a lot of that out there, a lot of great tips out there for folks that want to travel and kind of take advantage of those opportunities. So let's get back to the real estate side. Sure. Tell us about that. I read that you had started because of your dad's involvement in construction. So kind of start from there and tell us how you got to that first deal.
Sure. So my dad has owned real estate, I don't even know how long, for years now. So I kind of grew up knowing that I wanted to get into real estate, that it's great income, and it's, basically his retirement, him and my mom's retirement. So it's really nice to see that you can work hard for something and then have that retirement, or just have extra spending money along the way. So probably about 2010, 2011, I started looking for real estate. My dad is pretty avid at looking at Craigslist every morning, so he would always call me about deals. I would be looking, but I put offers into houses that I didn't get, and then eventually one day he called me, found a house listed on Craigslist. It was condemned, which means it's unlivable. Mm-hmm. And we went to see it, and it was in an area that I wasn't really sure of. I actually grew up kind of in rural outskirts of Buffalo, so it was in a town that I just wasn't that familiar with. It was always kind of like a drive-by town, but it's right by the canal, Erie Canal. So we came and saw the house, and it was just disgusting. I mean, it smelled. There was no floor. It was literally built on the ground, on dirt. And he was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, I've seen what he's done to houses. I know how great he can make them. So I just said, yeah, I mean, this seems like a nice area, and
it was the smell of opportunity, right?
It was the smell of something, that's for sure.
Hey, but it turned into an opportunity, did it not?
It did. And now I've been living here for 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And we actually ended up tearing the house down. It didn't have a basement, and he really wanted to pour a basement and lift the house and then put it back on the basement. And I was just, we totally gutted the house. It was down to the studs. There was just the frame of the house up. And at that point I was like, how much is it to just rebuild the house? You know, why are we going to lift a house? Like, it costs about $10,000 to lift a house up and move it. And he did the math. He's like, yeah, I guess you're right. So we ended up tearing it down. And actually, these rafters you can see above me are from the old house. We actually repurposed a lot of the wood into the house, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah,
Gives us some character.
it does. Yeah.
Yes, very, very nice. So, okay, I have to admit, I've never searched to buy a house on Craigslist. And I say that not because I don't think they're out there, because obviously they are. Your dad found one. But, you know, I listed my first rental property on Craigslist, and I'm a little skeptical. It wasn't the best experience on Craigslist. So that's why I kind of shied away from it. And I may be missing out on some deals because of that. So after listening to you, I may have to get back into that, especially an off-market deal. I'm assuming this was an off-market deal then, not listed by an agent.
Nope, it wasn't listed by an agent. We quick deeded it over. I think it was listed for 12,000. We offered him 7, and he literally wrote it on a napkin, and he quit deeded it the next day, and we gave him the cash, or maybe we wrote a check. I honestly don't remember, but
Wow.
yeah. And then the next property was really kind of the same deal. She did have, so last year we bought a double, and she did have an agent, but my dad had seen the house on Craigslist. I want to say it was listed for 89,000 originally.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at it every morning, so he sees houses go on and off here and there. So we saw it listed for 89, then it dropped down to 69 maybe, and then to 59. And he finally, I kind of started talking. Let me back up for a second. So Dave and I, my fiance, we always kind of talked about owning real estate. He knew, like, when we moved into this house, the plan was eventually to rent it out, move somewhere else. And then we wanted to buy another property. But life just kind of happened. We started our travel blog, and we kind of let real estate go aside because it really wasn't top priority. We were growing our travel business, and we were starting to travel a ton. We travel on every single school break that he gets, basically. So real estate kind of went to the back burner, and he brought it up one day, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. We really don't have anything to wait. So I want to say that was November of 2018. Not even a week or two later, my dad called me that he found this property. So the one that he was watching on Craigslist, the price kept going down. So he's like, why don't you give her a call? Let's go see the house. So I think at this point it was listed for 59,000. And we met with her, and it was in the winter. It's December in Buffalo, which is very cold.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a huge house, and the property, the lower was not rented, the upper was. And I didn't know this at the time, but her husband had passed away. So I think he was like the maintenance man of the property, and it was just too much for her to handle. So we put in an offer. We knew it needed a lot of work. It was older. I don't remember what year it was built, but I think we originally offered her like 40,000, and then after negotiations, I think we ended up purchasing 47.5.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we did have to get a realtor for that, but we just to close because she had a realtor, and I don't know, we had someone. So, but it really still was a Craigslist deal that we found.
So, it's interesting. You said that, your first property was 7,000. Your second property was 47,000. Is that kind of the going rate in that area, or was it just because of the condition after you renovated your first property? What kind of value add did you give that property?
So the house we live in now, we probably spent 100,000 around there building it, and I actually just had it appraised recently, and it appraised for 187.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you got 107,000 in it, and you added, goodness sakes, 73,000.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
And then this next house, I would say no houses don't usually go this cheap, but there are definitely a lot of diamonds in the rough that you can find in the area. So the house, the double that we bought, they told me it only is appraised at 100,000, but it it didn't really, that was just what a realtor told me, and I've seen comps in the area. I've looked them up because I'm very
Hmm.
curious to see what it would reappraise at, and they range anywhere from 150 to 200,000
Okay.
for a double. So we haven't gone into refinancing yet because we actually, when we bought that house, we got a home equity on it at the same time.
Okay. So and I wanted to ask you about that. So your first property, and then into your second property, what kind of financing did you use? Was it private money? Was it family? Was it HELOCs, savings? How did you get that? How did you get started with that?
So the first property was just savings. I mean, and honestly, it was a lot of credit cards because after we didn't know this at the time, and I don't know if this is a New York State law or whatever the case was, but if you quit deed a house, we were unable to get a mortgage for a year because it was something along a family quit deed laws where they don't want, if someone's going to lose a house, they don't want you to quit deed it and then get a mortgage to pull you out kind of thing.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a New York thing or not, but we weren't able to get a mortgage on the property and we started rebuilding it. And then I guess I learned a lot on that property because I should have done more research going into
Hmm.
it. But I just thought this bank told me I couldn't get a mortgage, so we're just going to figure it out. I had a lot of credit cards at the time, so I was like, we'll just build on this. Looking back was probably not the best way to do it, but we eventually, after the house was built, I was able to refinance it. I paid off all the credit cards and got a mortgage on it. But that was solely in my name because I wasn't with my fiance now at the
Hmm.
time, so I was doing that just by myself. So he didn't have a property in his name, and he was actually able to qualify for the loan himself, kind of as a first time homebuyers deal, but it was just a small bank in Buffalo. They do for they I think they gave us like $5,000 off closing for being a first time home buyer and going through that bank. So he qualified for that and was able to get a home equity on the house at the same time, because there was about 30,000 in equity in it.
Wow. And that's property number two you're talking about,
Yeah,
that
that's
that
property
your
number two.
fiance got it in his name.
Yep.
You just a minute ago you said, about how you financed it, your credit cards. You said probably wasn't the best way of doing it. It may have not have been the best way of doing it.
Hmm.
It may have not have been the perfect way of doing it,
Yeah.
but you did it.
Yeah.
You did it, and you got a property under your belt. You added value to it, and now you have all this equity.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think that's a great accomplishment. So don't beat
Absolutely.
yourself up. I think that's outstanding. That's you got to be creative in real estate. You have to be creative.
Hmm.
You have to be creative in finding houses, and you have to be creative on how you acquire them and the type of financing that you're going to use. So, man, that's pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing
Absolutely.
that. So your
Yeah.
next one, property number two, your dad finds it on Craigslist again,
Hmm.
and then this time your fiance is the one that applies for it. Was this a condemned property as well, or was it in livable condition?
It was livable conditions, definitely, but I guess I would say not to it wouldn't I wouldn't live there. So
Right.
it wasn't livable to me. So the upper was rented at the time, and so actually before we closed on that property, so they accepted the offer in December. In January the bank came back to us and said that there was some conditions that things that had to be fixed. There was a hole in the roof. A part of the roof had a hole in it. There was water damage and mold from the water damage, and they said that had to be fixed before they would close. Well, the homeowner was like, I'm not fixing it. So
Mm-hmm.
she actually gave us the keys and we fixed the property in January in the middle of winter. My dad and his crew got up on the roof and fixed the roof, just patched it. And actually, I think they ended up tearing it was just a small section. Like, I think that was an addition. Um, so we had to actually do repairs to the property before we even closed on it, and then we closed in February.
Yeah. See, there you go. Again, you're being creative.
Yeah.
The bank said no because of its current condition, but you and your fiance and your dad didn't accept that. You
Right.
guys thought it out, said, okay, how do we get there? How do we make this happen? And the idea was, let's get these repairs done
Hmm.
where the bank will approve the loan. So,
Yeah.
man, that's pretty interesting. Um, I would assume the bank probably didn't know you guys were doing that, right? Fixing it up, because sometimes,
Um,
or did they really care? They might not even cared. I don't know.
I don't think they really cared, to be honest. I don't think my dad is a licensed contractor, so I don't think they said, I don't think they knew who fixed it. They just knew it was fixed, and
That's
that's
all
all
that
they
really
cared
mattered.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all that really mattered.
they
Yeah,
didn't
I
care.
guess I'm kind of look at it because my experiences have been with foreclosures, and obviously, they tell you can't touch, you can't do anything.
Right.
You know, now the foreclosures that I've helped investors and that I've bought personally, it's really just cosmetic type stuff. So I'm not having to really do any major renovations. It's,
Hmm.
patch a wall, paint the
Yeah.
walls, replace the flooring, and install new appliances, and that's pretty much it. And they appraise,
Hmm.
as long as it appraises as is based on what we're buying it for, the bank's okay with it because we go with 20% down conventional loan. So for your the second property that your fiance financed, did he go into it with 20% down or 5% down? What kind of financing product did you guys use? Conventional,
No,
FHA? What was?
honestly, I don't even remember what type of it was. It definitely wasn't 20%. I think it was a conventional loan with 3% down. Um,
For a first time home buyer program?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So really, we just talked about getting real estate or getting into it, and then like a week later, we had a property. So we didn't really save or prepare for it because, and I'll say this because I know it's a big fear of a lot of people about opening a lot of credit cards, that it hurts
Mm-hmm.
your credit score. We are travel hackers, so we opened a lot of credit cards, and he didn't stop applying for them like a week or two before the mortgage or anything like that, and he still got approved. But I mean, it was a double, and it was super cheap, I guess you could
Right,
say.
right.
So,
So again, so your financing was through credit cards, and then
mhm.
you were able to buy the property, you were able to renovate it, get it going, and then you guys went ahead and refinanced and were able to pay all that back. Is that how you did that?
For the double, no, we
No.
did we actually, so we renovated it. That house actually needed a lot of work. We replaced electrical, we replaced the plumbing. Both units were 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, but they both had wasted living space. So they
Mm-hmm.
had, each unit basically had a room that if we moved some, either a door or moved the hot water tank and furnace, we were able to turn both of the units into 3 bedrooms. So
Wow.
we converted the upper first. So we closed February 25th, and we had that rented for January 1st, or I'm sorry, June 1st. So it took
Mm-hmm.
2 months, 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, in that time period, since we travel a lot, Dave and I were in Galapagos Islands, and I actually fell through a dock and broke my leg in 5 places.
Oh,
So yeah, so that was in April. Um, so the upper wasn't even done, and it was just kind of my dad working on the property and Dave helping when he could, when he kind of wasn't taking care of me because I couldn't do anything really.
mm-hmm.
I tried to paint with a broken leg, and that was probably comical to most people because I was like in tears by the end of it. It was not doable.
Wow.
So it took us a lot longer to finish the lower than the upper because the upper was mostly completed. We were just waiting, I think, for appliances to get in, and it was just a lot of the last minute work that needed to be done. But the lower we didn't get rented until mid October.
Okay.
Um, so
So
so we
good.
haven't.
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we haven't refinanced yet. I don't. There's no real reason, I guess, why. We got the home equity line of credit on that and the homeowners, so that covered a lot of the renovations, and then we've been paying it out of the rent. Um, Really, we have zero interest credit cards, so anything that we put on there, we just use the rent to pay those off.
Wow, interesting. So sounds like you're cash flowing very well with that
Mhm.
property, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Not,
I think our rents we're getting about 2,200 a month.
wow. And
Yeah,
that's per unit or for both units?
for both units.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so
That is
it's very profitable. It was
yes.
it was definitely a lot of sweat equity and a long time. And I mean, my dad is, I would say, we definitely wouldn't be there without him today. And I'm so appreciative of him. It definitely took a lot of work. And breaking my leg in between was not
Yeah.
helpful. But it's definitely worth it now. And I can't wait to buy the next property. We're just finishing up closing on a home equity on our own property, a line of credit to purchase a third property. So that's
Wow,
kind of
interesting.
where we're heading next.
So, just a few minutes ago, you mentioned that you had a home equity line of credit. Was that on property number two?
Yes,
Okay, and then you just secured another one, you said, for the house that you currently live in.
correct. Yep.
Okay, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a Texas thing. I need to do a little bit more research, but my understanding here, and I may be completely off, but you can only get a home equity line of credit on your primary home here in Texas. So I'm not able to do that with my investment properties. The only option I have there is to do a complete cash out refi to pull the
hmm
equity.
So
So,
our plan, actually, we were going to move into that property, into one of them. So when we purchased it as a regular conventional mortgage,
mhm.
and we did the line of credit at the same time because that's what we were going to move into, and we were going to rent this property out. And then
Oh,
the,
okay,
the property is just it's actually bigger than our house. The lower unit is huge, and
okay.
we just decided to stay kind of where we were and rent out that fully. So we already had the home equity on the property. Um, so you can't get a home equity on a property you're not living in typically, but
Okay.
because we did it that way,
But
um,
you were intending to live there, and for whatever
yeah,
reason, things change. And okay,
yeah,
okay, great. See, again, creativity. You talk about creativity and locating a property, and how you acquired it, how you financed it. Uh, you guys use your credit cards to do some renovations and some HELOCs. I mean, there's just so many ways that you can get what you're looking for accomplished, and you gotta think. You gotta think
hmm
about, how do I get there, instead of thinking, well, I can't get there. No, how do I get there? And
yeah,
that's a mindset that, if you want to be a real estate investor, you have to have that mindset. You can't just accept a flat out no every single time. Now, sometimes, yes, the bank tells you no, okay, no right now, but let me figure out how to get a yes from that point forward, just
yeah.
like you did. So great. So during these renovations, what was the biggest challenge for that?
Um, Biggest challenge.
Did you have anything
I,
that
I mean, the biggest challenge really was me breaking my leg. I would say there
yeah,
was, um, I don't think there was anything major that we kind of went through with the renovations, because my dad's been in the business for so long that there's not really much that could come up that he couldn't handle. On my house that we live in now, we had a lot of issues with, um, I think, just with inspections on a new build. It's much different than on like renovating a home.
right?
So they were a lot stricter. We had to get firewalls and put in spray foam insulation because our house was too close to a property line. So that was a little bit more expensive than we originally estimated what the cost would be to build and renovate. But I would say the second home went. I guess it went a lot smoother. It just took a lot more work to actually get it in the livable condition and repaired.
Right. So I guess one of the things that I would assume made you feel a little bit more comfortable was the fact that, like you said, your dad had the experience, he had the knowledge. So you were pretty confident that regardless of what situation you would come across with renovating that house. Your dad probably had done it already once before.
Yes,
Wow.
definitely.
Very,
He's
very.
been in construction for I think 40 years now or something crazy, so
Uh-huh.
he's seen it all.
Right. So just getting started in real estate investing, did it make you nervous, or again, was it because of the simple fact that your dad was on your side? You were ready to dive in. Were you scared about getting started, or not really?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's always this fear of the unknown. You don't know what you're getting into. But I knew that most of the time you could figure things out. Anything that comes along the way, you'll figure out a way to make it work. You know, when we built the first house, I had $50,000 in credit card debt, and that's scary. And I had a job with no income, so that that was really hard. Paying interest every month on that much money, it was a really rough year. But then the next property, I think it was easier because we had, first of all, I met Dave at that time, so having someone else being your partner in the business, you know, wanting to do the work and prepared to just do whatever it took, ripping down paneling, ripping up floors, taking out the drop ceiling. I think we were just both ready for the commitment to work hard every night and every weekend. We were at the rental property, and we just knew the finances would kind of fall into place. I don't know. I guess my dad's always kind of had that attitude too, where
Yeah.
the money will figure itself out.
Right.
You
You
kind
know,
of
and,
have to put your
and
time in.
it's a great thing having him there because, like you
Mhm.
said, he's been in real estate for a long time. So it's good to be able to bounce things off of him, and he can probably point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
So, what was the easiest thing about doing this?
the easiest. Oh, I don't know if there was anything easy. It's definitely a process. There's so many different moving pieces into real estate, and even managing the properties now, there's issues. I had a tenant text me that their light bulb melted out of the socket. So, but the easiest, getting the rent check every
Yeah, I
month.
was gonna
That's
say,
the
yeah,
easiest.
collecting the money, right? Yeah.
And I actually taught my dad how to use Venmo, and he loves getting rent every month now because he's like, this is great. I don't have to go to he probably has like 6 property or doors.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't have to. He was going back and forth. He probably lives 45 minutes from his properties. And he was going back and forth like 4 or 5 times to get rent,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
I have not had to go and collect rents anywhere.
mhm.
I have it set up for Cozy. Out of my 5 tenants, 3 of the families pay through Cozy. The other 2, they go directly to my local bank and they deposit that money. They notify me via text, hey, deposited the rent. I just confirm through my bank's app. Once I confirm, I'm able to log into Cozy with my phone, update their account. They get an email that it's been credited. Easy, very, very
That's
simple.
awesome.
I haven't had the need to use Venmo or Cash App or anything like that quite yet. So my plan is to stick with the Cozy website and kind of use that process. So sounds like you self-managed then,
Hmm.
right? Self-managed.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Have you read any books or taken any training on that on property management, or just kind of learn
No,
as you go and by your dad's advice?
kind of learn as I go, learning from Facebook groups. I had a tenant break her lease just recently, so learning that was definitely a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some learn. I think even throughout when I was renting properties, in college, when I was living in different apartments, I always read the leases and I always like took note of things because I knew eventually I wanted to own real estate. So I always really took extra consideration into that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's taught me a lot, but I don't know if you could really take away like the actual managing of properties. You have to learn by doing. I don't
Right.
there's so many different things that come up you don't really know until you experience it. But I think Bigger Pockets has a book on managing, and I
Yes.
wanted to read that. But so
Yeah.
far, I've done it all.
Yeah, I think Brandon Turner and his wife Heather, I think they both wrote that book, the book on managing rental properties. It's a great book. I would highly recommend that you read that. Also, there's a website that's called landlordology.com. That's a tongue twister for me. Landlordology.com.
Okay.
And that also has a lot of resources in there for your specific state as well. So,
Okay, awesome.
right.
I will check that out.
Right. It's a great resource for you there. Uh, Application screening process that you kind of do that on your own. You don't use any softwares to do that with.
I used, what did I use? I think I used Turbo Tenant for the applicate or the, yeah, I think the like pre-application to like pre-screen people. And then my first tenant, actually the first two I printed out a paper copy and I just did it
Mhm.
that way. But the third one, the one that just recently moved in, was living out of state. So I did use, um, I think I used Lease Runner maybe.
Mhm.
I can't remember. I've been kind of playing around with different ones to see which one I like the best. Some of them I didn't like because you couldn't edit the leases. You could pull it based on your state, but I wanted to be able to input my own terms and conditions, kind of things that I've added over time. So I think whichever one I used recently, it did allow me to add in stuff.
Right. So, as a Bigger Pockets Pro member, they give you access to a lot of files. So that's where I was able to get a lease, and then I had it tailored and modified to apply to Texas law. So that's what I currently use. And then I use the Cozy website to manage my rental properties. I don't know if you've used that or not, but I like it. It keeps track of applications. The tenant or the applicant buys their background and credit check there. So works real good. You get an email right away when those items are purchased to whoever's applying for your property. Plus, it tracks the accounting piece of it when they pay, whether you manually enter it or whether they pay online. Now they've added another feature which I haven't really used. I really need to start using it and train myself to use it and train my tenants to use it, and that's maintenance requests. They can go in there and submit that request. You'll get an email, and it keeps a running record of that. So it tracks everything.
That's
They
nice.
they also have a nice feature where once you get your contract signed or whatever documents that are attached to that tenant, you can upload that. So your tenant will always have access to it. So, if they lose their paper copy, I enter my signed lease agreements into Cozy. And if the tenant ever needs a copy, they just log in, download it right there. Simple.
That's
So,
cool.
yeah, it's
I will
pretty.
I
What's
should
that?
look into that. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say I've heard a lot of good things about Cozy and I just haven't really looked into
And
them.
it's free. It's
Is
free for
it?
that. Yes, it's free. Doesn't cost
Huh.
you anything. As far as I mean, I've been using it for about 3.5 years now, so I'm pretty sure it's still free. You might want to look
Awesome.
into it. And they have YouTube videos also kind of walks you through the process of doing different things with Cozy.
Okay. I'll
Um,
have to check that out.
so what's the most difficult thing that you've dealt with when it comes to tenants? What's kind of that nightmare story for you, or has there been anything?
Um, I would say when my tenant broke their lease, I've never been in that situation and I didn't really know the process. So I kind of did some research and I had them sign a termination of lease agreement for the date that the I think my tenant's lease was on the 15th. So they were moving out July 15th, but my new tenant was moving in August 15th or August 1st.
Hmm.
And I had put in that termination of lease agreement that um, they were still responsible for any rent that was unpaid due to the lease being terminated essentially out of there. And I think not having the proper cleaning procedures in place
Hmm.
really made it a lot more work for me.
Hmm.
So that was, other than that, I had complaints about the upper, they were
Too
complaining all the,
loud.
yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of
Um,
like when you go to a hotel, you can hear the upstairs stomping
yeah,
around or whatever they're doing, jumping or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
that was, I don't know.
So what's in the future for you and Dave as far as real estate?
Definitely planning on buying more properties. I'm hoping to buy at least one more by the end of the year, maybe two. Um, Ideally, I would like to have, I'm not sure if I have like a number of doors in mind or if I just want, like certain monthly profits.
Hmm.
But I definitely plan on keep growing it. Dave works in schools, and I actually became a flight attendant last year, so I'm I'm out of work right now, which is kind of nice because I have a lot of time where I can actually work on a property right now. So I want to have enough to supplement our income with that and the travel blog. So definitely plan on purchasing some more in the future.
Interesting. Wow. Wow. And your end goal, I guess you're still quite unsure how many properties you want. Uh, you don't have a definite number yet.
I don't know. I really don't. I think I would say maybe just enough for us to retire essentially and have the properties as a backup and have the travel blog as something we do kind of for
Right.
fun.
Me and my wife, we've been talking about that is what's our end goal. Uh, and right now, today, if you asked me that, my answer would be probably 10 properties. We have five
Mhm.
right now. I think 10 fully paid for and just take that cash flow. I think that,
Yeah.
and then with my pension and my civilian job, I think that would be just fine. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're thinking. What about an exit strategy? Are you planning on selling those eventually, or just keeping them until you leave it to other family members? Any children that you may have in the future, anything like that?
I think I would plan on keeping them. I don't think there's really a need for right now to sell them. I
Mhm.
have thought of maybe doing a flip just to get some more cash up front for the next property. Since we have been pretty good at buying properties for pretty cheap
Yeah,
around here, if we could get a flip, um, that could be enough for
right.
a whole purchase of a property. So, um, yeah, I think just buy and holds. And I'm hoping, I think eventually, when my dad maybe will pass on his properties to me.
Nice, nice.
So,
Put you
I
many,
mean,
many steps ahead.
yeah, that's long term. But yeah, I think at least 10 properties would be a great start.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if do you have a management company for your
No,
properties?
I self-manage.
You self-manage? Yeah, I think it'll come to a point where I think anything over 10, I would probably want a property manager. Um, I Not that it's that much work. I only have two doors, two tenants to deal with, so I don't know if how much more work it is with you have five,
Yeah, maybe it's because of the properties that I buy. They're typically newer properties. I think the oldest one was one that I actually lived in, so it was built in '67, but it's been renovated. So I know the history of the house. I know the what's wrong with it, what's not wrong with it. So I'm comfortable with that. But every other property have been foreclosures or short sales, and they're at least built in 2011 or newer.
Okay.
They're still in fairly decent
Hmm.
condition or great condition, to be honest. So I really haven't had any issues other than one house, a DR Horton house that I swear there's been probably 7 leaks, pinhole leaks, and the majority have been all in the attic or in between the wall. And I've had to cut into the sheetrock at least twice. But really, that's been my biggest headache. But I have a good plumber. So he's just a phone call away. He gets it done. I don't have to worry about it. I
Yeah.
got somebody I can call. They take care of it. I pay the guy and I move on. So I think it's just a matter of developing your systems, developing your team. You definitely have to have a good team.
Hmm.
And my air conditioners, I got a great air conditioning guy. I service them every 6 months. So, I try to stay on top of that. I think it's just a matter of having your systems and having your team to take care of any issues, and you'll be just fine. Actually,
Yeah.
it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
But so, what would be your advice? A lot of people that are listening or maybe listening, they're kind of struggling taking that first step. You know, they don't know what to do. They don't know where to start. What would you say to them? What would be your advice?
My advice would be that at some point it's probably going to suck, but you'll get through it and you just kind of have to jump on in feet first, dive in and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's not fixable.
Right. Right. Yeah, because a lot of times people are just thinking, analyzing. Next thing you know, you got analysis, a paralysis of the analysis, and then
Yeah.
you never take any action. If you don't take any
Yep.
action, what's the best time to invest? Today, now,
Yep.
get it done.
Yep.
Time is on your
Totally.
side the younger you are. So,
Hmm.
all right. Is there anything I haven't asked you when it comes to real estate that you may want to share with everybody out there?
Um, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think real estate can be a really great avenue for anyone who's looking for some type of extra income, but you have to be willing to kind of take that risk at first and realize that in the long term it'll pay off.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. So let's switch gears a little bit. Tell us about your travel hacks. Tell us about your website and tell us about your blog.
okay. So Dave and I are Basic Travel Couple. You can find us on Instagram at Basic Travel Couple. We have our website is basictravelcouple.com, and we have a Facebook group that we run. It's Basic Travel 101 Tips, Tricks, and More. Or I'm sorry, Points, Miles, and More. Um, but we essentially teach people how to utilize credit card points. And if you go to basictravelcouple.com/free, we have a free downloadable guidebook that you can read and kind of learn the beginner. We kind of did a basic breakdown, so the beginning of what is travel hacking, how it works, and how to start getting free flights and hotels.
Okay, great. Awesome. So I'll make sure that I put your links in the show notes. That way people want to, look at your website and check out your hacks and your tricks and your tips and whatnot, then they can do so. So, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate you, joining me this evening and telling us your story. It's awesome. I learned some from you, and I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna start looking at Craigslist. You got me thinking already, so I'm gonna check it out. Hey, who knows? I may get lucky, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, all right. You kind of told us already where they can find you: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, right?
Yeah, we do have a YouTube. We actually just started that recently within the last couple of months, so it's not as big as our other avenues. I would say Instagram's our biggest, but we definitely, if anyone ever has any questions about travel or real estate, always happy to answer them. You can message us on Instagram or email us, basictravelcouple@gmail.com. So we're very open and willing to help anyone else get a start in real estate or travel hacking.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Lisa. And again, this is Ruben Galindo. I'm out of San Antonio. So if anybody out there is looking to invest in the San Antonio area or anywhere in the Texas area, I have a huge network with other real estate agents throughout the state of Texas. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, especially if you find something valuable in this. Please comment below if you have any other questions for Lisa or myself. Let's start that dialogue in the comment section. Once again, thank you, Lisa, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Ruben.